and the media no longer trusts the celebs.
Now Watergate does not bother me. Does your conscience bother you? Tell the truth. Sweet home.
Speaking of Watergate, in another article from New York Observer, here's a bit of history. 40 years ago in the House of Representatives, after a full day of parliamentary wrangling, the Judiciary Committee ventured its first vote on an article of impeachment against Richard Nixon. 71% of its members from both parties voted in favor. That meant a trial in the Senate to remove the president from office was near certainty. Chairman Peter Rodino gavelled the proceedings to a close. The White House had tried and failed in a last-ditch gambit of just the sort that brought about these impeachment hearings in the first place, to convince the public that the Italian-American congressman, Peter Rodino, was from the mean streets of Newark, and he was connected with the mafia. Well, he wasn't. He was far from it. In fact, he had been so scrupulously fair in running the proceedings that he no longer made public appearances back home in his district. He said, "They want a bell ringer of a speech against Mr. Nixon, and I just can't give it." So, when Rodino, after the vote, immediately ordered the hearing room cleared, people trusted him. He was clearing the room because of rumors that an airplane under the command of Nixon was set to crash into the Capitol. It was an eerie foreshadowing of September 11, 2001, and people believed it was possible because regarding their president, it was believed that just about anything was possible. And that was all before the smoking gun. The phrase smoking gun referred to the way the president's diehard defenders on the committee were demanding proof from Nixon's own lips that he knew about and abetted the conspiracy to cover up White House ties to the burglary of Democratic headquarters in the Watergate office complex on June 17th of 72. They insisted, in the words of Representative Charlie Wiggins, a Republican from California, that in the committee's 38 volumes of evidence that there was not, quote, a word, ladies and gentlemen, of presidential knowledge and awareness of that wrongful act. Well, that proof came on August 5th when the president addressed the nation and admitted he had held back evidence from both the White House judiciary and his lawyers. His words on June 23rd, 72, recorded on his own Oval Office taping system, recommending he order the FBI stand down from its Watergate investigation on the lie that it might expose top-secret CIA activity. George Will called it a smoking howitzer. Wiggins, choking back tears, was among those who now said, quote, "The magnificent career of Richard Nixon must be terminated voluntarily." Republican National Committee Chairman George H.W. Bush said so as well. Now, Ronald Reagan, however, the governor of California at the time, widely believed to be gearing up for a presidential run, which he would do in 1980, was actually 79, was almost alone among prominent political voices that said the president shouldn't resign. He released a prepared statement in which he passively voiced the curious conclusion that, quote, "For the first time, it has been revealed that neither the Congress nor the American people have been told the entire truth about Watergate." That's what he said. Well, in fact, everything Nixon had been saying about Watergate had been serially revealed to be untrue for well over a year at that point. Reagan said Nixon should let the process go to trial in the Senate. According to the Washington Post on Wednesday morning, August 7th, that was exactly what would have happened. And the headline read, "Nixon says he won't resign." But by that night, a delegation of Republican House and Senate leaders and Barry Goldwater visited the Oval Office. This is fascinating. Check out what happened next. I find this piece of American history so interesting. Senate Minority Leader Hugh Scott reported, quote, "He was serene and he was most amiable." He seemed to be referring to insistent rumors that a disparate Nixon might yet deploy the military to stay in power, but they had made a political argument to a consummately political man that if he let this thing advance to a Senate trial, he would lose. So Richard Nixon acceded reluctantly the next night at 9:01 p.m. with the public areas outside the White House more crowded than they had been the night of November 22nd, 1963, of course, the assassination of John F. Kennedy. People shouted there in the streets, in the crowd, "Jail to the chief," comparing rumors about how the military coup would go down and cheering the cars that honked as they passed by. Honking for impeachment had been a summer political fad, the 1974 equivalent of a hot Twitter hashtag. The president went on TV and announced that effective at noon on Friday, August 9th, he would not be president any longer.
I've been high, I've been low, I've been yes and I've been oh hell no, I've been rock and roll and disco. Won't you save me, San Francisco?
Oh, San Francisco. Airbnb, the company that managed to attain excess value higher than the Hilton chain by not paying hotel taxes, possessing no infrastructure, and blatantly and spectacularly violating San Francisco city housing codes, recently made a foray into communal dining. This according to SF Weekly. Through an Airbnb pilot program, San Francisco city dwellers can transform their homes into virtual soup kitchens. San Francisco's Typhoid Marys and Botulism Joes can now monetize the age-old proposition of having guests over for dinner. This is not an ambiguously legal situation. It's unambiguous. It's completely illegal, says Richard Lee, the head of the City Department of Public Health and Food Safety Program. He said this to SF Weekly's Rachel Swan. His health inspectors could slap a $3,000 fine on a for-profit host essentially running an illegal restaurant. But the $10 billion tech platform enabling the process stands to pull a legal dine and dash emerging unscathed. The so-called sharing economy has led to spectacular wealth concentrated in the hands of those who conveniently don't share the risk in partaking of the quasi-legal services they provide in San Francisco. Over the 4th of July weekend, an app called Reservation Hop debuted in San Francisco. The service bought up spots at desirable eateries and hawked them to hungry patrons. The reservation that would normally be gratis would now cost enough to purchase an entire meal at a less pricey restaurant. The entity it sells but does not own is private rather than public, and therefore the service is legal. The oceans of bile loosed at Reservation Hop's audacity induced a potential soft pivot for the site. In the future, it may actually cut their restaurants it profits from in on the deal, though other reservation sites don't, and there are many of them. Either way, another free service is on its way to monetization. Tech-enabled folks with money to burn are, rather literally, skipping everyone else in line. This is an example of the increasingly egalitarian nature of San Francisco's increasingly inegalitarian nature.
How can I miss you when you won't go away? Keep telling you days,
Another story about San Francisco,
but you won't listen.
and it's San Franciscans that won't leave San Francisco. Those with family ties keeping them city-bound. This according to also SF Weekly. San Francisco is a place that's easy to simultaneously love and be driven mad by. There are often places where one needn't spend lots of money to live in a perpetual state of young adult penury. So here's an idea. Why not move elsewhere and they'll pay you? That, in a nutshell, is the impetus behind Techstars. The venture capital-backed endeavor selects tech startups to participate in accelerators in 7 cities. Austin, Boston, I like how those rhymed, Boulder, Chicago, London, New York, and Seattle. And you'll notice what city isn't on that list. The companies receive $118,000 apiece, and they participate in a 3-month program. and win access to a burgeoning network of funders and mentors. The program takes a 7 to 10% cut of participating startups' equity and rather sensibly aims to keep them headquartered nearby so as to add to that network. This year, a burgeoning number of San Francisco startups thought this would be a good idea. Techstars Seattle announced that between 2013 and 2014, 67% more SF-based companies applied to the program. Anders Mall, a Techstars associate, declined to disclose the exact figures. He described that number of applications received as more than 600. Of that total, 10 companies made the cut to move to Seattle. 3 hail from the West Bay. Does this portend a San Francisco exodus, or at least a slowing of the fire hydrant-like stream of startups heading to our city? Mall wouldn't go that far, noting this is just one data point. A perusal of city licensing data indicates, however, that 7,374 businesses opened locations here through August, making for a projected 12,300 this year. Now, last year, there were 14,769, and the year before that, there were 13,644. San Francisco Business Times recently reported that of the nearly 3 million square feet of office space being constructed in San Francisco, the proportion pre-leased by tech businesses is an unsubtle 100%. A co-workspace operator tells SF Weekly that capacity at his communal tech offices is also always at 100%. Or very close. The people who opt to move to San Francisco and pay top dollar are less interested in saving money by being elsewhere than by being surrounded by similarly motivated techies here.
How can I miss you when you won't go away?
As we go outside of the last place on earth where we bring you Mike's Daily Podcast, somewhere in Podcastro Valley, California.
And here's today's podcast picture.
This water is so good. And the picture is actually from yesterday. And speaking of water, I was sailing across the water on the Sausalito Ferry, going from the ferry building in San Francisco to Sausalito, which I was mentioning yesterday how foggy it was. It was like going into the white abyss. We went into this white cloud, couldn't see a thing because we went through the fog across the bay. And as soon as we were close to Sausalito, the fog disappeared. It was sunny. It was beautiful. People were doing the upstand paddling in the water and sailboats all around. It was beautiful. And the view in this picture is of me standing on the ferry boat, and behind me is Belvedere Island, connected to Tiburon across the water there from Sausalito. And that looked so cool. That whole area with a little bit of cloud on top of Belvedere Island, it looked neat. Some cool views around the Bay Area. And as I've mentioned many, many times in my little series here about the Sausalito Ferry, you must take it sometime. And if you have a Clipper card, if you live in the Bay Area, get a Clipper card for your BART traveling and all of that. It actually gives you a discount if you take the ferry and you use your Clipper card. So see that picture there, and I'm not getting paid by Clipper or BART to say any of that, so I'll just shut up. But that picture there at MIKEs-DAILY-PODCAST.com.
Michael Matthew, I just talked to all of my ancestors and my relatives, and they all say that we all sound stupid and weird with our accent. Ooh!
And do you all go, ooh?
Of course, Michael Matthew, because it's wonderful. It makes you feel good.
You don't have the gout, do you?
No, Michael Matthew, that's a very interesting question, though.
Right, it is an interesting question, because really we need to ask ourselves all, do we have the gout? The gout of our souls.
Mike, I want to tell you today that Chris Christie does not need to be blamed for any of this stuff going on with Ebola. Because those people that come from the countries with Ebola, they need to be locked down in a bunker for 20 years.
Yeah, because they're contaminated. Do you know that?
You guys, you're Ebola-chondriacs.
I like the sound of that, but I disagree.
The name Ebola-chondriac, you like that?
Is great. I want to say it too, but I don't know how. It's got too many syllables. Day.
Yeah, you made it too difficult, Mike. Oh my gosh, what happened?